Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
Hello, friends. Today on the Ageless Athlete podcast, I'm honored to speak with Dr. Carling Ursem. Carling is an old friend who seems to do it all. She's a longtime climber, an accomplished trail runner, a hardworking oncologist at UCSF, and finally a devoted wife and mother of two beautiful daughters. Carling was kind enough to take some time out of a busy schedule to speak with me. And it was a delight catching up on old times as well as learning about all her recent feats in the outdoors. This podcast was recorded some time back, but hope you enjoy listening to it just as much as I enjoyed recording it. Carling, hey, how are you?
Great to see you.
Hey, listen, it's so good to see you in person. Several years have passed, and my last memory of us being outside, I think, was at Joshua Tree.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you even remember that. It's been several years. I think it was Thanksgiving. The few times I've been to Joshua Tree I think the majority has been around Thanksgiving.
Oh, when we went way out to
Yes.
Yes.
Was it Paradise Valley? I can't remember the name of that particular area, but it was like
Yeah.
a long
One of those,
hike.
far reaches of J Tree. Yeah.
Yeah, far reaches. The one thing I do remember about that day with you was honestly like how impressed I was. Probably a very ordinary day for you, but honestly, how competently and effortlessly you were hiking. I mean, you and Catherine are like both such endurance athletes, but I remember like I was in hiking shoes, and I remember at one point I think I got lost because I couldn't keep up. And I think you were wearing Divas. You had these ordinary sandals, and you were just little stroll in the neighborhood.
Yeah, so we go to Joshua Tree at least once a year for like a week. We've been doing it since college. And so it's like such a magical place to me that I feel very at home. And so I think because of decades of time, feel very comfortable traversing land in Joshua Tree.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I mean, great segue. And also just a quick reset. Would love to learn a little bit more about yourself and your journey into the outdoors.
Yeah.
So just quick, where did you grow up? What was some of your best memories of being outside?
So I grew up in Southern California, kind of moved all over, but by junior high, I was in Southern California in a very not outdoorsy family. I like to joke that my mom thinks that the Holiday Inn is roughing it. So like was not a family that did any of that sort of thing, but got really into snowboarding in like junior high and high school, and had a group of good friends, particularly a couple girlfriends that we were all got really into snowboarding. And in Southern California, we were not that far from Big Bear and Snow Summit. So we could get like some group of parents to drive us up, and our local snowboard shop had a van that would take you up. And so like a lot of weekends in the winter got into snowboarding. And so then that kind of carried over to college. And when I first got there, I was kind of like, okay, snowboarders, these are my people. And so kind of sought that out. And then really through people I met from snowboarding, got introduced to all of the other kind of mountain sports.
Got it. Okay, so that was like the gateway drug.
Snowboarding was definitely the gateway drug for me. Yeah. And I think again, not having grown up in a family that particularly sought out the outdoors, like very quickly, I was like, I can't believe this is real life. Like, I remember the first time I did like a little bit of backcountry snowboarding, just enough. It was like more just like off piste stuff where there was no people around and it was like an untouched bowl with fresh powder. And I was like, this is a movie set. Like, how is this real? Like, how do I actually get to be in this place in the world? And always much more loved like the beautiful outdoor places that snowboarding took me than caring so much really. Like, I like snowboarding, but I didn't care about the snowboarding itself as much as it being like a vehicle to get to these beautiful places.
That's such a great I fell in love with being outside. I grew up in India, and my parents, mostly my dad, would take us trekking. They used to call it trekking, or really like supported backpacking trips to the Himalayas. And even though I think at that age I was a teenager, I kind of really did not want to be with my parents. It did instill me with like that same thing, like that love for being outside and also doing something which is like somehow physical in a way. Whether I mean that those if it's hiking. So for me, that was the genesis of like how it started. And now I think my parents are I think they've accepted it now that I like to take it maybe to a different kind of level with timing. I'm curious, how do your parents think of like sort of this evolution of like Carling the outdoor lover, maybe reluctant, like maybe not reluctant, but like, do they think you would have done where you these things with?
Yeah, I think that they feel like the apple landed far from the tree. But at this point, like, this has been who I am for most of my life now. So I think that they very much like in my family, like I'm the outdoorsy one that likes to camp and like they all like to laugh about it. But I think at this point, it's so solidly a part of me and I think a part of what they know of me as well that I don't think they could even separate it from who they know me to be at this point.
I'm curious, let's say your parents meet up with old friends at a dinner party and they ask them, hey, so what's Carling up to? Does ultra running picture in?
It's a good question. I honestly, I mean, I think right, they're parents and I'm a doctor. So I think there is still a certain amount of that is what they probably talk about. I will say, to give them a little bit of credit, when Scott and I got married, which is now, I guess, 11 years ago, I did a backpacking bachelorette trip, partly with the knowledge that the only way in my life I would ever get my mom and my sister to come backpacking would be as if I said, this is what I'm doing for my bachelorette trip. And they did. They hiked, they slept in a tent. We did one night of camping and then started hiking the next day and then did one night of camping and then hiked out the next day. But they did it. And I was so proud of them. And it meant a lot to me to have them get so out of their comfort zones to do that with me.
That's amazing, Carling. and I can almost visualize this. I mean, your mom and your sister, I mean, they're hopefully having a great time outdoors, but they're probably, maybe especially mom, they're probably rejoicing on how they were able to contribute to something that means so much to you.
And I think they were, well, first they were a riot. Like my mom and my sister are so much fun and just like cracking jokes the whole time. And like they had like matching rhinestone jeweled hats that they got for it. And brought like their whole makeup kit. Yeah. And I carried most of their stuff. Like they cracked up about it. They were like flashing bat signals from their tent with their headlamps, like made a lot of laugh about it. But I do think that they also felt really proud of themselves for it was not like a super easy hike. I had misread the map a little bit. There was a lot more climbing than I thought there would be. And I do think that they felt really proud of themselves for doing it.
And where was this? Where did this
Santa Barbara. Yeah,
okay.
Kind of like the mountains outside Santa Barbara. Yeah, so it was like not too remote or anything like that. But
okay, so not the Himalayas. Maybe for a future life event. Awesome. Let's see. So one thing I wanted to also touch on is as we talk more about your running, is I actually met you through climbing, right? We met through friends who climbed. We climbed at the gym together. We also climbed on that evocative Joshua Tree trip. So curious. So here you are, you're falling in love with the outdoors. How did that transition into maybe climbing, maybe other things you do that I don't know about, and then finally into running? And I'm also wondering, like, did running and the outdoors happen separately, or were they part of the same like big story?
That's a great question. Yeah. My relationship with running definitely started as one of convenience. So I started climbing in college. I was a snowboarder and I wanted a summer sport, was like really how that started. And then my now husband, then boyfriend Scott, grew up in Sonora. So like right outside Yosemite. And he was a climber all through high school. And I had kind of heard about it, but he wasn't really actively climbing at the time that we started dating. And then around a year in or so, I was like, oh, this climbing thing like sounds like something I'd like. Why don't you take me? And then like he likes to joke like he created a monster because from that day forward, like every vacation, every day off, everything, I was like, well, climbing. I got very, very into it.
And I'm guessing this is like climbing outside, right?
Climbing outside. Yeah. Track.
Got it.
And like even so the first climb he ever took me on was After 6 in the valley.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, which so fun. But like him and then his roommate in college also was a climber. The two of them took me and he led the first pitch. And I remember him yelling down to his roommate and being like, Tyler, tell Carling what a hand jam is. Like, I had no idea like what it was.
And for context, After 6 is this, I guess, one of people's first like multiple climbs in Yosemite, right? Which is actually, I think, a 5.7, even though it's called After 6.
The reason is because whoever first did it started it at like 6 p.m. It was like it was like
okay,
easy enough climb that you could like do the whole thing after 6.
Got it.
Yeah, I did look into that because it is not a 5.6. You're right.
Okay. Thanks for that. I just think that was some sort of a funny joke on like the grade, but good to know that was because of the timing of the climb when it was first done. Got it. So
like right away, and it was just like, I love everything about this. I love the physical movement part. I love being in these beautiful places in the mountains that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. And so spent as much time as I could climbing for the next like decade or so. But like that was like my senior year in college that I started climbing. And then I took 1 year where I worked in DC for the FDA, and then I started medical school. So there was not so much time for climbing. But I was lucky. So I went to medical school in New York. I was in Manhattan, but not far from the Gunks at all. And so did a lot of climbing actually for being in medical school. That's how I met Dave Yoon, is when we both lived in New York.
Yes.
And that's kind of how we, I think, ultimately met, kind of through that friend group. And so it was in the Gunks like every weekend, spring, summer, and fall. Every weekend that I was not in the hospital, I was in the Gunks. And so did actually still do a pretty good amount of climbing then. And we like took a trip to Thailand and did a lot of time back in, you get a summer off your first summer in medical school. So I spent that whole summer in Yosemite.
Okay.
So yeah, managed to.
Were you literally like living in Yosemite that summer?
Well, fortunately, Scott's family was still in the like Sonora's foothill area.
Sure.
So we were doing all of the like shady Camp 4 camping.
Oh, okay.
Stuff.
Okay.
And then we'd like occasionally go to his mom's house and do.
Got it. Okay. I did not know that. I guess you pursued climbing that obsessively.
Summer of dirtbag life, yeah. But it was like a summer of dirtbag life when I was in med school. So like
dirtbag life / like best life.
Totally.
Any goals you had with climbing, Carling, that either you accomplished and you're proud of, or you're like, hey, when I have time back for climbing after running or something else, you would like to take those off?
Yeah, Yeah. So I very much am in the like, there are seasons of life and seasons for sports mindset. And so I very strongly believe that I have another climbing season at some point in my life. My guess is probably when my kids are a little bit bigger and hopefully they enjoy climbing too. And kind of towards the end of my kind of peak climbing time, I did get into big wall climbing.
Yeah.
And we climbed regular route on Half Dome, but never did El Cap. And I definitely still have a big part of me. I actually had told myself that before I got pregnant, I would climb El Cap. And then it just like a lot of stuff, life, and I didn't get to. And so that is very much still on my list. And I very much think that time will come again.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24/7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode. Okay, awesome. Well, I mean, sometimes maybe it's I guess it can be a good thing to not accomplish all your goals right away, because you want that kind of fire further, further ambitions. Okay, let's talk a bit more about running, or maybe we want to talk about a little bit about how did you get into running? Here you are, obsessively climbing all over the world. Summer in Yosemite, maybe a winter spent around Krabi in Thailand, and dreaming of and accomplishing some of your climbing goals. How did we get into running?
Yeah, totally. Again, like love the one you're with attitude. So I went to residency in North Carolina, which is very flat and not a lot of mountains.
Actually, I beg to differ, because I lived there for 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, where did you live?
Yeah, I was in Charlotte, and
Okay.
I actually discovered I did some climbing pre-Charlotte, but I really got into it in Charlotte with regular trips to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I really actually credit West Virginia or the New River Gorge to teaching me how to climb.
That is
But North Carolina is not as flat. Maybe RDU is a bit flatter than like the Blue Ridge Mountains and whatnot.
Yeah. That's so funny. So a year between college and medical school, I lived in DC. I did a bunch of climbing at the New and Franklin and all those West Virginia crags, and loved it. It was so much fun.
Which years were you climbing at the New?
Really just 1 year. It was 2006 to 2007.
Ah, okay, got it. So mine was 2004 to 6. So we overlapped just a little bit. So yeah, you were like DC, then you moved to
North Carolina. Yep. So I was in Durham.
Yes.
And in addition to there's not like a lot of trad climbing, although I'm sure there's some. I was a resident, and so I had like a crazy schedule. I was working 24 to 30-hour shifts every third day, and the closest climbing gym was like a 30-minute drive. And so I just like didn't have that amount of time. And a friend of mine who was living in San Francisco was like, and I'd never was a runner. I always thought I had bad knees, was like, hey, let's do the San Francisco Marathon. And this was like January, and the marathon was going to be in July. And I was like, okay, this is like a good kind of vehicle for me to learn how to run. I'm very much of the mindset of like not trying to reinvent the wheel. So I was like, I'm going to like do some research, find like a running technique school of thought, do some training, get some coaching. Like that's generally kind of how I go into things. And so I found chi running, which is just one of the kind of like mid-foot stance running techniques. It's very similar to kind of most of the modern ones that have been in the more like minimalist shoe era of like a mid-foot strike, not heel striking, a more minimalist shoe, a faster cadence. But that's kind of the one that I found. And so I like read the book. They've got like videos. I went to some workshops. I had a coach like watch me run and give me feedback, and spent really that whole first 7 months really learning how to run with different form than what I had tried before, which was probably just like heel striking and a slow cadence.
This is super interesting. So you mentioned, one thing you mentioned is you said you had bad knees, right?
No, right. Thought I had bad knees. I just had bad.
You thought you had bad knees. So you sound like you might have dabbled a little bit in running.
Yeah, like would occasionally, I don't know, do a turkey trot or something like that.
Okay, yes. But then when what made you want to sign up for like this marathon then?
Yeah, I think it's just so efficient. Like particularly being a resident, being like, okay, I've got like an hour a day that I could do something. And I want to be outside during that time. From your front door and back in an hour running, you can have an awesome run. And I guess between these, I was also doing a bit of cycling, but it takes a long, like to get a good ride in is a few hours.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have that amount of time. Plus the North Carolina roads, like a lot of there's like these beautiful backcountry roads and people are really not aware of cyclists. And it was scary. I was like, I don't want to die road biking. So I got to find another sport.
I'm not a runner, though I just used to run a little bit. At least my excuse of not stopping running was bad knees. And I still love, like some people say when they don't, like a lot of people who don't run, they often fall back on that classic, like, oh, I just hate running or whatever. I do not hate running. I don't know if I'm cut out for like super long races, but I did love the theory and the efficiency of like, let's say you have 40 minutes before you have to change and I don't know, run to the airport, right? And you can put those shoes on and like hop out the door and like get that great buzz. So how did that marathon go?
I loved it. I'll say that the training was difficult because a July marathon in San Francisco works great because July in San Francisco is a great running temperature. But it meant that I was having all my longest training runs in North Carolina in like June and July. And it was so hot. And there's a reason that they don't do marathons in North Carolina in July. So that was a learning
East Coast heat and humidity, right? At its best.
Yes. But I loved it. Like loved the first marathon, was totally hooked from there and was immediately like, okay, what's the next one I'm going to do?
I wish we were buddies back in those days. The longest I've ever run really is I did a half marathon, and my approach could not have been more different. I signed up for this race because there was a team from my company at work that pulled people together. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds like fun. So I did a half in Charlotte. I think this was 2002 or 3. And basically no training whatsoever, right? And I just remember like for 2 days feeling like somebody had taken my legs and put them through, I don't know, the washing machine or something. It was like, I loved it. And I was like, if I'm ever doing this again, I would have to do something different. So I think your mentorship would have been handy. So you trained for this in like hot climate, but the race was in San Francisco.
Yeah. The race was San Francisco, so it was way cooler. And so it went great. I had a ton of fun. And I love with running, you can see so much in like a fairly short, like you ran like all of San Francisco. You do it's the Golden Gate Bridge, you go over and back. You go through so many different neighborhoods. And I think that also was kind of what opened my mind to that part of running, of like, oh, wow, this is a way that you can see a lot in a kind of short amount of time.
Curious, like, given that you hadn't ever maybe run a marathon, or did you, like, how did you do in the race, like performance-wise, and how did you feel after
Yeah.
completing
I
it?
did
Did you
pretty
perform
well.
up to like expectations?
I didn't, I'll be honest, I didn't really have any expectations. Like, it was my first. And I think I don't remember. It was I did 4 or something, which I think like for a brand new runner was great. I think I was kind of like middle of the pack, just where I thought I would be and felt good after. But I didn't have any particular expectations. I very deliberately went into it just being like, my goal is to not get injured.
Got it. Okay. That's keep those expectations low. Maybe not so low. People do get injured, but yeah, that's a good goal to have. And then everything else is just a bonus. Interesting how you speak about loving the one you're with. And I just realized I have a sort of a slightly similar story, which is I started surfing back in 2008, somewhat reluctantly back then, mostly because I was just tired of commuting to climbing, multiple hours going to Sonora, Yosemite, etc. And then also I was new to San Francisco and I felt like I had no life between commuting to work in the peninsula and then I started surfing. And then gradually like that thing just took over, right? Like you get into it because I'm like, hey, I want that. I want the adventure. I want all of that 20 minutes away from my house. But then the more I got into it, and then very slowly, I think I might be one of the slowest learners to have slow but stubborn, right? I actually fell in love with it, right? And then for a long time, it kind of became a driving passion. So curious, like, is that the same with you for running? Where like, you know what, I'm doing this because I can't go climbing all the time. But this is efficient, it checks the boxes. So curious, like, how did that then, move forward?
Very similar. First, I will say I'm so jealous because I wanted that to happen with surfing because it's the wilderness closest to us, right? Like living in the Bay, like it is all of the things I love about wilderness, and it's right there. Like you don't have to commute to it. And I wanted to love surfing and to learn to surf. And Scott actually took a trip to Nicaragua for a week because I don't like to be cold. I really don't like cold water. And so I was like, okay, let's go somewhere that the water's warm. And maybe then I'll like fall in love with surfing and then want to keep doing it when we come back and won't mind so much the cold. And I just didn't. I really wanted to. It just wasn't my thing. And I'm very jealous because I think surfing is so awesome. And you do get to like explore such a beautiful part of the world, like getting to be on the ocean. And yes, I'm jealous of that, but I just don't really like being in the water.
Well,
but anyway,
you found other ways to suffer.
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing. It's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
But it was very similar in that I started it, out of convenience. And I've always loved exercise. Like I've always been someone who's like, I'm going to do something every day. And then fell in love with it. I think even more so once I moved back to California and particularly really started trail running. Like I loved running when I was road running, but I think it's really when I started switched over to trail running that I really became passionate about it. And it became more of just like a thing that I'm doing because I can't climb and more like I'm choosing to do this because I love it so much.
Got it. Okay. So Yes, so marathon happened, and then you started trail running, which sounds like the marathon was maybe more urban, the one that you did, but then you started discovering these trails around, and
Yeah, I kind of had a few more years of road running. So I did
okay,
that and then did kind of the natural progression, I think, of road running, just like I want to qualify for Boston. And so like did a bunch of training and a few more road marathons to do that. But all that was kind of all while we were still in North Carolina. And then I started my fellowship in San Francisco until we moved back here. And the first, I don't know, probably 6 months or so, was still doing a lot of road running. And then at some point around there, Thomas actually invited me to go on a trail run in the Headlands.
okay,
And that is what like changed it all. The very first run out there, it was like so foggy and cold and gray. Like it was like, is this fog or is it actively raining? Like that whole
yeah.
thing. And from like the first step, I was like, oh, this is it. Like I love this. And I remember him and this other buddy, Patrick, that we were with, like the whole time I was just like, this is so awesome. And we like couldn't even see each other because the wind was blowing so hard. And they were like, oh, like we were worried that you wouldn't like it because this was like miserable weather, but I'm glad you had a fun time.
Yeah, the San Francisco fog is it's magical, and I think it's all about like one's approach. One can choose to complain and whine about it being cold and misty in summer, or one can, like you did, which is marvel and enjoy that sensation of being in this incredible natural phenomena.
Again, you get to really just be in it. Like when I feel like I mean, I have come to love the fog a lot. I do live in it, but because you get to run above it and below it, like over the course of, so yesterday I did a run up Tam with a friend and we must have gone in and out of the fog like 5 times, and you go above and then you look down on the inversion layer and you go below and it's foggy. And then it's like so amazing that you get to like really interact with weather.
Totally. One thing I was curious on, like through in your running journey, right? So again, drawing a small parallel to rock climbing, obviously we have goals with climbing and we have goals which are often very personal. But one of the things that drives me and many of us is the community that we find, right? Like shared goals, these trips, very time intensive kind of sport, but doing it together is a huge part of it. Was that true for you with running and now ultra running? Like we have friends in common who run, and I think you run with them, and your husband Scott, I mean, he runs as well. So how much importance would you give to that aspect of running to having kind of pushed you this far?
Yeah, I think it is very different from climbing in that, like, by definition, you have to have a partner to climb, or for most climbing, the climbing that I was doing. And I think that does make it such more of a kind of group activity.
Mandatorily so, right?
Yeah. And as we're part of the reason I got into running is because I could just do it on my own schedule. And it's to some degree, that's still the case. Like there is such an amazing running community, particularly here in the Bay Area. And I've gotten more involved in it, and I would love to be more involved and active in it than I am. But my schedule is just so limited. Like I run from like 5:30 to 7 in the morning. And that's really the only time that I have. And I don't even have a lot of flexibility of like driving somewhere to meet someone for a run, because like I have to be back like if I drive 10 minutes each way to run, then there goes 20 minutes off my run. Like I have a pretty tight schedule. And so I'm delving more into the trail running and running community, and there is such an awesome one, but it's nowhere near the way that climbing was. But I think that's much more to do with kind of my own life and not to do with the trail running community.
Got it. Right. And I think people really don't know about the multiple fronts that you manage. So give us a sense of what a typical like day or week in Carling's life looks like.
Yeah. There's no typical day. So I'm an oncologist, so I have like a pretty demanding job. And then My husband's an ER doctor, so he also has a demanding job, but it's also very different. Like every day, every week is different. His shifts are different. And then we have 2 kids, ages 6 and 3. And so, yeah, our schedule, we live by our Google Calendar and it's planned out like many, many months in advance. I'm always saying like anything is possible if we plan ahead of time. Like we can make anything work, but everything requires so much pre-planning. So most days I get up like between 5 and 5:30, and that's my time to run. And then usually I get home and like do a quick turnaround and get to work. Scott often doesn't work until 2:30 or so, but his ER shift is more like the swing shift. And so he gets our kids up, does breakfast and everything with them, takes them to school. And then I am at work all day and then usually pick them up around like 5 or 5:30. And then he's at work then. So then I get them home to dinner, get them to bed, get the house cleaned up, usually maybe have a little bit more work to do. And then like I try to get in bed by like 9:30 or so, since I'm typically getting up by 5:30. So there's like not a lot of wiggle room.
Got it. Yeah, sounds very tightly calendared.
Yeah, I someday maybe, although I've always been like a planner. So some of it is me. But someday I think maybe we'll live a life where you can like be like, oh, what are we going to do this weekend? We'll just fly by the seat of our pants, but that's definitely not my life right now.
And this, again, like I think it just adds just more credence to some of the decisions you made around where you live. Because you can live in San Francisco and you can still go on great runs, but like you said, sometimes you might have to drive to get to those trailheads. But then you chose to move to literally the mountains in one of the most beautiful places in California, to Marin, where you can even cut down on those commute to trailheads.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, I don't know, maybe 200 feet from my garage to the trailhead.
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together, training, aging, mindset, and awe, you will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
There's like such a lesson here where if you really want to pursue these kinds of goals, like you really have to figure out like where you can, akin to maybe the ultra hiker or the ultra backpacker who's snipping like ends of their toothbrushes, right?
Yes. That is exactly the time management of my life. Absolutely.
Yeah. We didn't even get to some of these things I wanted to really ask about, which is, again, getting back to running. Love to hear what might be some of your proudest achievements. They may not be your longest runs, so would love to hear about those as well. I know that you also set a few FKTs in running parlance, right? Fastest known time. So maybe speak about that for a little bit.
Yeah. I'll say so. Currently, I'm in a place with running where I just have so much gratitude, like for the ability to run, but because it brings me so much joy. And especially in the context of all of crazy life and the crazy world around us, the amount of just joy and centering that I get from running is immense. And because of that, like I recently, particularly with these long runs, I'm so grateful that I get to be there doing it. And so I think that the things that have probably been like my, I don't know, best athletic performances have been the days that I'm most grateful for. That the weather worked out. I didn't have any injuries. I got to the starting line. I didn't have GI issues, so I could eat everything that I needed to eat. That grandma came and watched my kids. I could be out there and go do the run. And then so by the time I'm running, I'm just so grateful that I'm there and that it's happening, that it's not that's not really the effort. And so most of the days that have probably been my, I'd say, best athletic performances, when I, even while they're happening, that's the way that I feel. So this year I ran the Miwok 100K, and I haven't done many races I guess a lot of people haven't done many races in the last few years. Really just been getting more seriously into trail running before the pandemic. So most of my longest runs have been self-supported adventure runs or FKT attempts and not formal races. So this was kind of the first big race I had really done. And I placed 4th, which I was so excited about, had no idea, was just hoping to come in under the cutoff. And I think that was probably one of my probably bigger physical achievements, but it didn't feel like an effort. It was physical effort. By the end, I was oh my God, am I going to collapse? But it didn't feel mentally hard. I think and so I don't feel proud as much as I feel grateful. That the days that I feel proud of are just all of those hundreds of training days that I got up at 5:30 and ran alone in the dark in the fog and just put in all of those miles. Those are the days that I'm wow, that was really hard. And I'm really proud of myself for doing it. The day of the event is just okay, now I get to enjoy the fruits of this labor.
Yeah. No, it's such a culmination of everything that has gone in. The training time put in, the life organization that has also occurred. Wow, that's such great attitude. Just to be able to be at the running line, knowing that those I's were dotted and the T's were crossed with family, with work, to be able to allow you to get there. And when you get to the starting line, you're just so happy that you can do this. That maybe how well you do. Obviously that's super important, but that's almost gravy.
Yes, that's exactly the way to explain it. It's just gravy. I'm just so happy that I get to be out there. And I even feel so grateful that I can be in the physical shape to allow me to do these things. So 2 weeks ago, I guess not quite 2 weeks ago, Scott and I ran the Timberline Trail, which it's 40 miles. It goes around Mount Hood for our wedding anniversary. And it was just such a fun day. But miles 20 through 30 are gorgeous, flowing downhill on this nice soft surface, and just very, very enjoyable running. And I just kept thinking I'm so grateful that I'm in the kind of shape that at 20 miles, I can be oh yeah, I can kick it up a notch and run fast and just enjoy the heck out of this.
You did the High Sierra Trail, right?
Yes.
Does that also stand out as one of your more proud?
It's the hardest physical thing that I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
So I first heard about the High Sierra. So the High Sierra Trail is a trail that goes from Whitney Portal up over Whitney, and then traverses the entire Sierras east to west, and then finishes in Sequoia. So you literally go east to west across the whole range.
That's crazy. And I think a lot of people do that as a backpacking trip.
Yeah, they do it
as a strenuous backpacking trip, particularly if you include going and climbing up Mount Whitney as part of that.
Yeah.
But you did all of that in one run.
Yeah. And yes.
No big deal.
So the idea first came up a couple years before. Again, I think talking with Thomas about just what would be cool things to do. And at the time that we first talked about it, in my head, I was no way. I was mostly running 50Ks at the time. And I didn't think that with my life that I would actually just have enough hours a week to train for it. And then probably this past December, I kind of just was no, it was the climbing phrase. I was inspired by the line. I was this is so cool to just go over the highest point of the continental US and completely traverse a mountain range. And I was like, I want to do it. And I'm willing to put in the amount of work that I think is going to be required to do it. And so starting from January, and then I did it on July 10th, it was like my singular focus. And I trained very, very hard and really did like focus a lot of my life energy on it. Made sure that I was like going to bed early every night so that I could like be in the state to be able to train. Didn't really like have a beer for like any of those 6 months because I could tell if I like had a beer that my runs weren't just good the next day. For like the final 2 months before it, we rented an altitude tent. Like slept in an altitude tent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Was very kind of Scott that he, because he was not doing this run. So he just like slept crappily for 2 months, sharing this altitude tent with me.
And this oxygen, this high altitude tent, is this one of those where you have forced oxygen like deprivation for like
overnight, basically while you're sleeping.
Okay.
So it's just pushing low oxygen air into this tent that you put over your bed.
Got it.
That then the 8-ish hours a night that you're asleep, you're being exposed to low oxygen. Because I knew that like of these 72 miles, 35 of the miles are above 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
Historically above 10,000 feet, I have had a hard time that I get really nauseous and I like thrown up on a bunch of runs above 10,000 feet. So my hope was that this would help.
And did it?
So it helped aerobically. Like I could tell, like I was running above 10,000 feet, not really feeling short of breath. In that regard, I could tell that it really helped. I still was really nauseous that whole run. And that was part of, 72 miles with like 15,000 feet of elevation, like that's going to be hard no matter what. But this was like the worst GI distress that I've ever had during a run. And I think a lot of it was the heat. It was very, very hot that day. And so I had a really hard time keeping calories and fluids, really getting them down. And then I think you get into this downward spiral of like you're dehydrated, which makes you nauseous. So then you don't drink, which makes you more dehydrated, which makes you more nauseous. And it's hard to get out of. So I don't know if like the tent only worked for the aerobic part and didn't help with the nausea part, or if just like it was a really hot day and I got dehydrated and it had nothing to do with the altitude.
Sure.
Hard to say, but it was the hardest thing that I have ever done. Even now, which is awesome because I did it. And so I do like coming out of that, have a lot of confidence for life in general. Like any sort of hard challenge, I'm like, I've done really hard things. I can do that. Like I do think that I gained a lot from doing hard things and gain a lot of self-confidence that kind of spurs me towards the next thing. But most ultras, I mostly enjoy it. It's like, I was joking with somebody that like most of these are like a lot of enjoyment punctuated by periods of intense suffering. This was like intense suffering punctuated by periods of enjoyment. It was really hard.
Okay, sure. My mind still boggles. Just to restate a couple of things about this run, Sierra's east to west, 72 miles and 15,000 feet of elevation gain or change.
Gain.
Okay. Which that sounds like, just to put things in context, that would be, let's say, starting from sea level and maybe going to the top of Mount Whitney.
That's part of it, is that it is front loaded with the elevation because you start at Whitney Portal, which is only like 4, 5, maybe. It's not very high, and then you go up. So like it is very front loaded with the elevation gain, which is helpful.
Got it. Okay, so you do the hardest bit at the beginning when you're maybe more fresh, and then the rest of it is okay. Now, so you accomplished maybe the most demanding physical feat, right, of your life ever thus far, and you put an intense amount of effort training for it. Curious on what are some of the sacrifices to pursue this run, and maybe actually more broadly in life that you do for this, and not just for you, but from also your family. Yeah. How does Carling and Carling's family come together to support these goals?
Yeah, this is something I have definitely thought about afterwards, because it is after 6 months of like pretty focused training, it takes about a month to like mentally get out of it. Like to be like, oh, I could have a beer. I could, I don't know, stay up 30 minutes late talking to Scott because like I don't have to like make sure I go to bed on time to make sure that I get up on time. And there definitely is a good bit of sacrifice from everyone. I think probably mostly Scott, in that I don't have any downtime to hang out. I'm just like every minute is already spoken for. Is where when I'm always kind of training for something. Like it's not like I'm ever, I don't know, totally not training. In my head, at least, I'm always kind of training for something, but not to this degree. And I think probably just the rigidity of like, I can't stay up late tonight. I'm getting up early tomorrow. Like this, and we can't change for that. I think also the social life of like, I mean, not that we're going out clubbing or anything these days, but just like hanging out with friends. I'm like, oh, it's 9:00, guys. I gotta go. Like
Right.
that is probably the I would say the biggest sacrifice is just that like I'm someone who very much sticks to my schedule.
Sure.
And when I'm really training hard, don't have any flexibility in that, which on the one hand, like it's effective. Like I achieved my goal, which is awesome. And it felt great, but I wouldn't want to live quite so rigidly all the time. Like I do think that it's important to back off and just be a little bit more flexible for periods of time as well.
Fair enough. Like, fair enough. One has to be a little compassionate to oneself
and one's partner.
Yeah, and the family. What are maybe some routines that you follow, Carling? Would love to hear a little bit about your diet, a little bit, any kind of cross training, any other things that you do to help you train, but then also keep like motivated.
Mm-hmm. Well, first I'll say I have a coach who's wonderful. Her name's Sarah Scazzaro. She's through Carmichael Training or CTS. And that was really a game changer for me. I think there was like a pretty clear inflection point of my running around the time that I started with her. And I think that coincides with the time that I unfortunately stopped climbing. I think you can have a demanding job and a family and one sport, but I think it's really hard to have two. And so like my running really kind of moved to a different level when I like pretty much stopped climbing. And I know that I have another climbing season in my future someday. I look forward to getting back to it at some point, but it's not right now. And so unfortunately, so I don't do as much cross training as I used to because I used to for years still climb like 2 or 3 days a week and then ran probably 4-ish days a week. So, but now I run 6 days a week and I do 1 day a week of strength training.
Okay.
So it was, like a significant shift. And so I have a coach who makes my schedule for that. And so, I do 1 day of strength training that she sends me a schedule each week of like what I'm doing and ties it in with how intense my running week is. So if it's like a really intense running week, then it's a less intense strength week. And then during some of the time, I also have like a second day of the week that I do maybe like a shorter run and then also a short strength training, depending on like where in my training schedule I am. It's a luxury, but something that for me did make a very big difference. I've like read a lot of how to train for an ultramarathon type books. And so in my head had been like, oh, like what difference does it make to have a coach make your schedule? Like I could do that. I've read all these books, but it does actually make a big difference. Because she does more than just makes the schedule, right? Like she knows how to adjust it based on what I tell her is going on in the rest of my life, how the running is going. And so that I think for me has been huge.
I'm guessing like your interaction with this coach, is this coach in person with you often, or is it more that you share your data with them and then they send you this program? And it's really interesting what you talked about getting coach. So I got a coach a couple of months ago for climbing. Never had that. Most of us are like proverbially sort of self-coached. I also devour like a ton of media on like, and training for climbing has also come such a long ways.
Yep.
But just having this coach and knowing that Rosalind's got my back.
Yep.
So she's based out of the UK, and she sends me the same thing. She sends me like a weekly planner. And I think for me, it takes so much guesswork out of what things I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
It's just simplified. And I think she doesn't know this yet, but in some ways it's also almost like therapy in a way, because I can be like, oh, I didn't feel this great, and I didn't like this, and this is happening. That's fine. Hey, you can have an off week. And so it's nice to actually have a sounding board, which I don't want to subject like other people in my life to.
Yep. I think it's invaluable. And for me, when the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. in my head, I'm like, maybe today should be a rest day. Like if it's me making the schedule, right? But if it's my coach made the schedule, I'm like, no, this is not the rest day. Okay. Like I'm going to get up and do it. And definitely, I think I have so much trust in her. And so particularly like going into me walk, I was like, I've done everything she told me to do. Either I'm going to do okay at this, or she's a bad coach and I know she's not a bad coach. So it also like gave me some confidence, and having that sounding board. Like I remember being really nervous before a few different things. And I remember her just being like, Carling, you're a strong runner. And I was like, that was exactly what I needed you to say. Thank you. Like that. There's a lot of value that coaches bring beyond just like making the schedule.
That's awesome. You mentioned cross training. You mentioned you do some strength training. You also mentioned earlier that you felt way back when you had bad knees. Any other kind of like mobility work, etc., that you do? Are you foam rolling every night before you go to bed?
Yeah, I will give the caveat that I absolutely should do more and wish that I did more. I try to do 1 minute per leg of foam rolling at the end of every run, because I've seen various PTs over the years to try to come up with a good routine of like things that I should do. Because again, my overarching goal with running is like to still be doing this in 20 years. Like I just don't want to get injured. I want to more than any particular speed or like other goal. And one PT was like, really, all you need is just 1 minute per leg. And I was like, yes, that is something that I can actually do. Like, so I do try to do that after every run. I'm probably successful, I don't know, 70% of the time, but like 2 minutes. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then I go in Mill Valley. There's a kind of running focused chiropractor called Mount Tam Sport and Spine. And I go to him about once a month for like a general tune-up. And that has been super effective. When I'm regularly doing that, I tend to not get injured. So that seems to work. And then other than that, no. I wish I did more. Like I used to, back when I was climbing a lot, I also used to do a ton of yoga. And I used to be able to like put a block behind my feet and put your hands over it. And now like I can barely touch my toes. Like I definitely have lost a lot of flexibility. But that seems to have been okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about like focus, right? I mean, you have the strength and the mobility for where you need it to be.
I think for the sport that I'm doing.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing enough things to, at some point, if you need to come back and gain more of that, you can probably put in the time.
Yep.
And
the 1 day a week, it's not just strength. Like there's some mobility stuff in there as well.
Got it. Just some fun questions. Let's see. In the last several years, can you think of like any new habit, maybe a new behavior that has most profoundly improved?
I like that question. I did think about this one. I feel like since I've had kids, I've much more adapted a like YOLO mentality of like, I only have this chance, right? Like, and even so after I had Josie, I was still trad climbing quite a bit. And I remember pre-kids trad climbing, you'd get scared and you'd like go up, place a piece, like down climb, like think about it, like feel the stuff out, go back up. And I backed off of way more things. And then after I had her, I was like, okay, I've got 3 hours that I get to climb. And like grandma's watching her so that I get to climb. Like, I'm just going to do this. Like And I was like such a more confident leader and backed off of so many less things. So I was like, this is it. This is my chance, right? Like, I think the same thing is true now. Like, I don't have all day to like think about, oh, am I going to go for my run? Where am I going to go? And I'm like, okay, this is my chance to go for something. I'm going to go for it. And I think the same has been true for like FKTs and kind of like any of these opportunities to do some cool run or race, is that like, okay, if I've got the chance to do it, I'm just going to go for it because this chance may not come again.
All right. And Carling, how old are you?
I'm 38.
38. You know what? And I'm 44 now. And this also hit me in the last few years that I'm not going to put off things for like some future date if I have a chance to accomplish them soon.
Yep.
What is maybe the best gift that you have received, and maybe a gift that you've given to somebody else who found it invaluable?
Think about that. I mean, it's definitely going to be some sort of like opportunity or time, or more than like a physical thing. We all have short memories, right? It's like the things I'm going to think of are all the recent things. I mean, I think I mentioned her a little bit, but like my mother-in-law is really wonderful. And like, she gives me the gift of the ability to go for these long runs because she watches my children. And so that, and not just watches them, but like cares for them in such a loving way. And so I think that probably is going to be like very up there as far as top gifts, would just be like her coming and being with our kids so that we've gotten to go out on some of these great adventures.
For sure. What is maybe one thing that you are not good at that you wish you were?
Swimming. I wish that like years ago, more when I was road running, I got a tibial stress fracture.
Okay.
And tried to like take some master swimming classes at like the UCSF school. I feel like swimming is such good exercise. Zero impact. It's so good for your body. You can still be outside. And I just hate it. I don't like being water. I don't like anything about it. Like, I just hate every second of it. I wish that was not the case.
Fair. If you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Avocado toast, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually thought about this. The tartine bread, they're
with sourdough, yeah.
Yep. With like some I'm mostly vegan, so with some earth balance, avocado, some like good sea salt, and then like some chili pepper flakes. That would be.
Oh, that sounds, yeah. I think that would be in my top favorites as well. Cool. We're running to the end of time, but quickly, what's the next like running goal that you have? I'm guessing you still want to run long races.
Yes. So I've got kind of a short term and long term. I've just been actually fleshing this out in the last week or two. There's one FKT that I'm going to try to go for next month. So it's like a shorter one, like a 50K-ish. It's funny. I'm kind of superstitious, so I feel weird saying it, but I'm totally fine if I don't get it. So I'll say it. So last fall, I got the Bridge to Bolinas Ridge FKT. It's so beautiful. It goes through my backyard. And then someone said a new one this spring, which is awesome. Like, the whole fun of FKTs is like, in my mind, it's like a group of people moving the needle forward. Like, somebody moves it a little faster, which gets someone else to move it a little faster, and like keep pushing it. And so I want to try to go back for it next month.
Okay.
So it'll be that. And then I think I'm going to take off maybe like December, January to kind of chill. And then I want to do a 100-miler next year. So my goal is to do a 100-miler like August-ish of 23. And so probably start training for that like February, March is my.
Got it. Okay. Short-term goals, which eventually kind of all build up to like something more monumental. And just last question. If there was a gigantic billboard and you could print anything to say to others, what would you want to put on that?
Ooh, such a good question. Gosh, there's so many different directions that you could go with that. I feel like whenever I'm a cheesy person, so it'll be something cheesy, but I feel like it would be like, you can do this, like just to like believe it, like a believe in yourself type message. As a mom, I'm always trying to like insert messages into the psyche of my children, and I feel like most of what it boils down to is like, you can do it, like keep trying, like you have this within you, just like trying to like get it down into their cells. And so yeah, it would be something along those lines.
That's awesome, Carling. I can imagine Josie and Villa. I'm just putting a leg here, but like staring into their bowl of cereal and seeing the cereal grain spell out some sort of inspirational message for the day. Seize the day.
Yeah, you got it.
You got it. Awesome. Hey, Carling, this has been such a fun conversation. I'm not sure how much of your life is public, if at all. But if people wanted to keep up with like your running adventures and your accomplishments, can they find you somewhere?
It's a great question. Most of my life is not really public. Strava is probably the only part of my life that is. And I'm just my name, Carling Ursem, on Strava.
Got it. Are you public on the gram?
Medium.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a mix of like running stuff and my kids. So
got it. But yeah, Strava is probably a good way to find out what Carling is up to on a regular basis. Got it. Carling, it's been such a fun conversation. I hope to have you again sometime soon.
Thank you. Maybe we'll get you out here for a hike or a little run.
Yes. I think I would love that. Have a great day, and hope to meet in person sometime soon. That's it, folks. Carling does seem to do it all. And while I won't be running a 100-miler anytime soon, I did come out inspired, and hope so did you. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay ageless.
Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.